Welcome to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books, hosted by me, Zibby Owens. It's an award-winning podcast with over 1,900 episodes, all featuring authors of books you love and those you have yet to discover. Listen daily 5 times a week. Then go to zibbymedia.com and learn more about what the LA Times called the Zibbyverse. Zibby Media includes Zibby's Bookshop, an independent bookstore in Santa Monica, Zibby Books Publishing, Zibby Retreats, Zibby's Book Club, and more. Go check it out at zibbymedia.com and follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens. It'll take you where you need to go. Thanks for listening. Victoria Jackson is the author of We All Worry, Now What? I met her at a book party at Amy Griffin's house, which was wonderful, and I was like, you have to come on my podcast. Victoria Jackson is a cosmetics entrepreneur, medical research trailblazer, National Women's Hall of Fame inductee, and mother. She founded the global powerhouse brand Victoria Jackson Cosmetics, becoming the first woman to generate more than $1 billion in revenue from selling cosmetics on television. In 2008, when her then 14-year-old daughter Allie was diagnosed with a rare and potentially fatal autoimmune disorder, neuromyelitis optica, NMO, Victoria shifted her focus from mascara to medicine. Along with her husband, Bill Guthey, she established the Guthey-Jackson Charitable Foundation, which has funded therapeutic research and treatments and is on a mission to find a cure for NMO and other autoimmune diseases, both rare and common. Victoria has written 4 books, including The Power of Rare, a blueprint for a medical revolution, and her most recent book, We All Worry, Now What? She also co-founded and launched No Makeup Makeup with Kim Wildman in July 2024, a brand that pays homage to her beauty pioneering roots and is poised to become a major player in the booming beauty world. She is also a co-founder of Godmothers, bookstore in Montecito, California, where we will be hosting our Zibby retreat in February of 2025. So please come to that retreat, come meet her, stop by Godmothers, and see all the amazing things that they have in store at that indie bookstore. Welcome, Victoria. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss We All Worry, Now What?
Nice to be here, Zibby. How are you? Are you worried about anything today?
Oh, I'm always worried about everything. I actually posted about your book this morning and I was like, it's so ironic because I was like up in the middle of the night worrying. And then I like had to finish the last little bit of your book. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm worrying about a book about worrying. It's like,
Right. It just goes to show. I mean, when our mind just gets in that loop of some kind of worry, and it's getting out of it. But it's something that I think, everybody talks about the stress, the anxiety. It's something that I've always dealt with, the panic disorder. But to me, worry is where it all begins. And it's, what we water that turns into the stress and the anxiety and the panic. So I feel like it's a very timely book right now, given all that's going on in the world.
100%. Yeah, you had some great quote in there about watering the trees instead of the weeds. Like, what would you rather water?
Yeah,
that was great.
Well, and I gotta give credit to Jay Shetty on that one.
Okay, fine.
I always give credit where it's due because honestly, I was listening to his podcast and he said you can water seeds or you can water weeds.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, it's kind of that feed the lion, feed the lamb. It all sort of goes back to what we decide to, put our energy toward. And it was just another way of thinking about that. And the book is really about tips that I try to use as a, world-class black belt warrior and how I've had to become a little bit more of that warrior.
I love that. And I think it's so much more authentic to hear your story and then tell us, like, actually this works. Like, this is how I'm getting through life and this is what works for me. Like, it's not like a science-backed, foolproof method. It's just like, you know what, you guys? Like, here is my story. Here's my disposition. Here is how it helps. And I want to share that with you. It's like a kindness that you give us.
Yeah. I really wanted to give you real life of this is what I do as I'm really, and I'm going through it right now. It's funny, this is the first book. I've done 5 books, all very different and yet very specific to what I was working on at the time. And this is the first one where I read it myself. And there's something about, I'm sure you talked to so many authors, Zibby, but the fact that at the end that I read it and it really was, wow, this was a book I really needed to write. And this is a book that I'll constantly need to revisit and listen to my own words as I'm still, as I said, it's not like, oh, I wrote the book, I'm cured, I don't worry, I got this all dialed in, figured out. It's an ongoing process.
Yes. And we're
Yeah.
always working on it because the mind, our minds just go in this one direction, and it's like as soon as you take it's almost like the bumpers in a bowling alley. Like as soon as you take them out, it's going to like go back in the gutter. You got to like make sure they have air in there so that they keep protecting the ball. Bad analogy, but
no, but it's true. Like you have to go back and, it is the basics. Some of it is just the basics of how we talk to ourselves. And, when my mantra in the book where I'm saying, if it's not happening now, it's not happening, so keeping myself in the present moment. And I'm all about, I'm sure you talk to so many people. There's so many little bits and bobs and things people say that I always think we sort of have to just knit together whatever works for us. I feel that with, my cosmetic company and offering women, what I consider the best foundation in the world. But yet, if something else works for them, I just really want to help empower people and, find their way through some difficult times that we live in right now.
Well, that definitely comes through. And I love, by the way, that you put the little coupon for your cosmetics in the back, because now I'm like, I'm totally going to do that later when I have time. I dog-eared so many places, but with different advice and parts of your life, of course, that I want to discuss about. But some of the tricks and tips that you use, like saying to yourself, it's just one flight, I think, like getting yourself into that mindset, like not catastrophizing everything, how you're not getting triggered as much. Oh yeah, it was Jay Shetty. Sorry, I just saw that passage there. You were saying as you refined your technique, you wanted to share it with other women. You said this in relation to learning to apply makeup and how you became a teacher of that and your whole experience at UCLA. And maybe I should back up for 2 seconds for people who don't know about your cosmetics empire, but maybe back up and say how you started that and became a sort of a teacher and how those connections and all of it led to something far bigger.
Yeah, definitely. Let's call that I look at my life in a couple of different parts at this point. There's, the mascara, the time I was in medicine, as I say, mascara to medicine. But in the mascara part of my life, the cosmetics, I was really a Hollywood makeup artist who, started with not a lot of the Hollywood talent or the, innate talent, but perfected that. And for 13 years did all the, over 200 album covers, all the People magazine covers, you name it. I was doing it for 13 years, working with a lot of celebrities. And it was just, I never found a foundation, a base makeup that I liked. And I decided that I was going to create one at the time, because this is going back quite a ways. As I think about it, as I'm getting ready to turn 70 next year, I've been doing makeup for a really long time. I created a foundation. At the time, there was a lot of everything was, pink or orange or, colors that were not natural to the skin. So I wanted to make a neutral base, more beige tone, yellow undertone, something that was more natural to our skin tones. And I decided to create a foundation that I started by mixing together a lot of different ingredients, not knowing what I was doing at the time, but I knew what shades I wanted, and created a line of makeup that went along really and coexisted with my philosophy, which was no makeup, which still is today. Like looking your best without looking like you're overly done. And so I created light, medium, tan, mahogany, and dark, 2 shades in every compact, along with a color coordinated kit. So people would pick their foundation shade and then peach, pink, or red color coordinated kits, where I basically put all the lip colors, the eye colors, cheeks, everything together. It was all the guesswork was taken out. And what now our younger generation thinks of makeup tutorials, for me was, a DVD that you put into your little VCR of a 2 to 3 hours of me teaching you how to do your makeup. And it was a huge hit. I went on television. I was the first person to sell color cosmetics. I went on TV, and it was a great success, and did another like 13 years of infomercials with different celebrities. I've since created about 600 products. My company did about $1 billion in sales and went on QVC for 10 years. And in that time period, I decided, I wanted to sort of, demystify the whole like, oh, the Hollywood makeup artist, only we know the secrets. And I just thought, oh my gosh, if I can do this, you can do this, which has always been my philosophy. I come from low self-esteem. So it was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this. You can do this. Here's how. And so that's the teaching at UCLA, where I did that for about 10 years with every quarter, 50 students, and met a group of guys that were at the time selling through television. And that's how my first infomercials were launched. So all that being said, I am very true to my no makeup philosophy, which we can talk about because I've kind of come full circle and just relaunched my makeup. But basically during that time and having a few children and living life as we do, I remarried. I was married and I had a son, and then I remarried and had 2 more children. My daughter was diagnosed with a rare disease and given 4 years to live. And that's where I say I go from mascara to medicine. My life in a moment, as when those things occur, just changed in an instant. And I was like, I'll close the book on mascara, open the book on medicine, and learn everything there is to know about this condition, autoimmune disease, and, dedicate my life to that and change the narrative for my daughter, which I've been able to do. I mean, it's not, we're not out of the clear, but she's living a full, beautiful life, and her story is hers to tell. But it was just, as I said, it's taken me down the last 15 years of a whole other life, and certainly reinforced what this book is all about is worry, and how somebody who was, as I say, born early to be a worrier, all of a sudden was faced with, more worry that, anybody would want to have in a lifetime I was dealing with every day.
Wow, your story is so inspirational, what you achieved. And, you didn't graduate from high school, and we know why when we read the book and we can discuss, but how you just you just made it out of nothing. And one thing I found really interesting is the correlation between the sort of fearlessness on the one hand and then this worry nonstop on the other, because I feel like I can kind of relate to that. I worry about everything so much. I'm like constantly changing plans and worrying about this and that. But then when I try to do something, I'm like, oh, totally. Like, Yeah. And I think it's like you explained it in a way that I had never heard before and that I felt was incredibly interesting. Can you go into that a little more?
Yeah, I think there's so much because people always think, God, but you've done so much. And so there's the outward facing, Victoria that just, no, I got this and we're going here and we're doing, and then there's, the one that, has to lay down on the bathroom floor or couldn't get, on the plane or, and it's how these two kind of, and they're both forces, truly forces that coexist and, how I just sort of manage my way through it because things are always going to be presented to us in life the book really are the techniques that I have to do when I start becoming overwhelmed again, yet at the same time, having to get, excuse my language, but all the shit done that I've got to do, or the people that are, relying on me or the expectations that I have of myself to, to accomplish the things I want to do.
And I'm so, I should have addressed the experience with your daughter and the medicine and finding out the diagnosis and how shocked you were and going upstairs and weeping uncontrollably and then finding a way. Like you found 3 medicines that are helping your daughter so much and helping so many people. That's incredibly amazing and also so upsetting that you had to go through it, but still just like, just wow.
Well, it's also shows when you really, and at the time, there was really no information around this condition. At the time, they told me maybe 10,000 people in the world have it. Now there's millions and millions of people because I've really shined a light on something that was misdiagnosed so frequently as MS or, as you start getting into something and there was really no conversation. So I'm somebody who has to picture things in my head. So I manifested what would it look like to get all these people, I had to get to their brain trust, right? Through this shared sense of a humanity, like, help me. How do I get these people together, from a mother's desperation, but at the same time have to be very organized while she's going through attacks, while, the bad things are happening, while the fear is like right there and has a chokehold on me, and yet keep moving forward and finding the balance of letting people see that, but at the same time, knowing that I'm going to have to really build this, this foundation, a different kind of foundation that is going to, help me, save what they're telling me can happen to my daughter. So it was working on just so many different levels. And the last book, which is really, I would recommend, Saving Each Other, was the first book that I wrote about this. And it's my daughter and I wrote it together. And I never really knew what she was going through, because at first she didn't want to know what she had. And it's a really powerful book because our pages were put together at the end. And until the book was finished, I really didn't know the whole story from her part. So it's a really powerful book to read. And then the one that was right before this book, The Power of Rare, A Blueprint for a Medical Revolution, is really the blueprint of how I went step by step in working to find a cure and how to get these drugs made. And I would recommend it for so many people reach out to me that, have other foundations. They're on their missions. This was how I went about it and how I was able to bridge the gap between patients and pharma and how to get things done. So I think that would also be really, really helpful.
Amazing. You shared a lot about your upbringing, starting with, as you said, being born early, and maybe that the feeling your claustrophobia may have originated in the incubator for all that time, which sounded terrible, and that your mom was only 21. I mean, I can't even imagine today this is happening. Anyway, but then you went through so much with your father taking off, and you were adopted by your stepfather, and then you had this horrific attack, which you wrote about so beautifully, and so just here's what happened, and you didn't dance around it. You're just like, look, here's the thing, and this pillowcase rapist just came into my house, and reading it, you're just like, no, I can't believe this happened to her, and that you were stabbed, and this is the kind of story where you're like, well, how could this person ever get over this? And then, but you're reading the book so that you did get over it in some way. What was it like to write about that and share it now so publicly?
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you that it was my favorite thing, having to go back and do that. That would be sort of lying. But you know what? I wanted to do it to show, the pillowcase rapist was, he was notorious in the 70s here in California. And, it was, my biggest fear was always thinking someone was going to get me. And then, somebody did get me. I think the point of putting that in there was not in any way to sensationalize it, because it obviously is a very painful part, in my life, and knowing that my kids who knew about it, but were going to potentially read about it, although these are my kids, I don't know that they've actually read anything that I've written, but it, just that what you can go through, and kind of, I guess it almost set me up as, yes, I truly am a legit warrior. I've had a lot of stuff happen, and a lot of things that I've had to, navigate and get through. And I think all of those things were in that situation. It taught me the difference between where I write in the book about zooming out and getting perspective, as a difference from, say, what I did at the time, which was disassociate from what was happening to my body while, a horrible act was taking place. So it was kind of really there for a frame of reference too, of, again, how to navigate things. And you kind of see, I look at things almost as I'm looking at these pictures and manifesting, almost like a movie, as you go further into the book, and you see that I also, down the road, while I was trying to work on saving my daughter, I also was diagnosed with cancer.
I saw that.
Like, oh no, the mom can't die while she's saving the daughter, and it was, and in a way, because of the way I was able to frame it in my mind, and I was fortunate enough to catch it early, I could say to the doctors, like, I'm here for a reason. I've got a purpose, there's meaning to my life, cure me, but I've got things to do. And I think that sort of really helped me get through that experience. So I just wanted to share all these things, not to be victim-y or a victim, but kind of like, okay, what do? You go to this next place, you do the next thing. It's just like always doing the next thing because, if you do nothing, you know what that looks like.
Oh my gosh. Now you called it like your 2% rule. Like you are always in this bucket
Yeah.
where these terrible things are happening. And you had sort of you had a little sense of humor about it at one point, like how can this even be?
Yeah.
You just have to roll with it a little. The dissociated part I found so interesting, that we have the ability to do that you can actually, it feels like it should be out of Ghost or something like that you can. And I know it's common, or it's like, but still it's really remarkable that our souls can kind of leave our bodies and look down on everything going on as a self-protective mechanism. It's incredible.
And the fact that I was able to sort of take the disassociation, which is very different, but yet sort of turn it into a more grounded version of zooming out.
Yep.
Zooming out, you still need, perspective. So I always have to sort of, and it's another way of centering yourself, putting yourself back in the moment and centering yourself to be able to think about, to make that plan for what your next step is. Because if you're so in it and you're so in the worry and it's so paralyzing, you can't really sort of get that, zooming out, top of the trees, kind of looking down vision that you need to help get you to the next place.
In a way, though, it's almost like, well, I might as well worry because bad things are happening.
Well, yeah, you can do that. And that is true. But where's that going to go? It just sort of, and there might be a time where you need to do that for a minute, and you need to cry or, just isolate yourself or do whatever you do that sort of, take care of yourself. But you got to change the conversation. At least that's what I do. Some people might go, oh, you can't allow yourself to do that. We're human. You're going to feel what you're going to feel. It's just, I have this ability and want to encourage that in people to I think it was in one of my first books, I said, perseverance is where the gods dwell. It's like, you have to persevere. Mm-hmm. You have to sort of, find that way, whether it's through, I talk about feathering your nest, curating your friend group. Think of the people that can help pull you out, that are going to not, if you're stuck in that place where you can't move, where you're just ruminating, how to stop that spiral.
I love that section on community and how you can find community in lots of different places and different ways, and how important it really is. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Even now doing that with, you've kind of set the example and led the way of, an amazing bookstore. Opening Godmothers was a way for me as well. I have Jennifer, my partner, obviously, but for me, it was about, I'm not an expert in that field. I wouldn't even pretend to know, a quarter of what you know about the book business and all of that. But the fact of reconnecting with people, like community, doing things that are always exposing me and to new things, being a curious person. And I think that has helped me in even building this medical foundation and in my makeup. So I get to just bounce around now between, mascara, back to the foundation, the medicine, books, community, I'm just building that sort of life for myself that will help me with what has been my obsession with worry and fear.
Wow. Tell me more about the bookstore, and how did you and Jennifer get together? And just tell me more. I know we talked as you were debating doing it. And
yeah, no, Jennifer and I, we had dinner together. We recently, probably like within the last 3 to 4 years, we've known each other. So it wasn't like lifelong, but we just connected right away. We were having dinner at a friend's house, and then, we just started go to lunch, and over one of our lunches was really talking about, I've lived between, LA and up there in Carpinteria I've been there 32 years. And just talking about, what we're both excited about, and just talked about, Jennifer had talked about, we talked about what would we do next? What would we do? What would be fun? And Jennifer brought up, like, talking about a bookstore. And that would be cool. And then you kind of go to, well, if we were going to open a bookstore, where would it be? And there was always a building that I had my eye on that was in Summerlin, this really cool building. And then, Godmothers, the name came up. We were lucky to get that name from Oprah because Jennifer, myself, and Oprah had thrown a gathering for a friend of ours, and he referred to us as, his fairy godmothers. So it all just started to come, little bits and bobs and pieces of coming together. And then we found, the building, was able to secure the building, and there you go. I mean, it's just, and it's been incredible ever since we opened. So I'm learning about that, every day. There's more and more to deal with and learn about. And I hope we'll be doing some things together.
Yes. I'm excited. I think we'll doing something in February. Anyway, should be fun. Yeah, very excited. Yeah. I can't wait. Well, it's opened. Godmothers is open with such a splash, and it's such a great addition to the world. It's this new model, I feel like, of gathering, like bookstores as gathering spaces. Of course, we sell books, but that's almost not the point. I mean, it's part of the point, but right, you couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah, I think people, it just shows, and you know this because you've been doing it a long time, like people are hungry for community, right?
Yes.
And,
yep.
and it goes back to worry, because people are worried. We're in a world where it's a little, the election coming up, we don't know what's going to happen. Things have been a little destabilized for a while now. So, it's great when you can come together with community and start grounding yourself. And that's why, we all worry, now what? The now what is like, okay, how do we just reconnect with ourselves and the people around us to not just be so much in worry, but more be in action, be in compassion and kindness for others and for ourselves. That's really, at the end of the day, the guiding principle that I've lived my life by. I really think a lot about other people. I'm working on thinking a little bit more about myself as well, because I haven't always done that. And I'm at a point where I need to sort of think about what I want as well. But I want to continue to just, I have found the meaning and the purpose in my life, and I'm committed to finding this cure that I know is affecting a lot of people and my daughter. So that will ultimately be my life's mission, and I'll get to make some beautiful foundation that you'll learn about. That when you go online later,
I will.
.com, people go. It's probably the best foundation. We did just win Oprah 2024 Best Foundation. So I'll do a lot of fun and interesting things along the way, and try not to worry so much.
That's really all we can do in life, right? We just try to get through. We try to be helpful, try to make meaning.
And try to have joy, right?
And try to have joy, yes.
I switched from the happy. I think I bought every book on happy or happiness in the title. And I was like, and then I would almost feel bad because I'm like, well, I still don't feel happy, but so I'm going to go to joy. I'm just going to go to joy. And we're coming up to holidays. Well, hopefully we'll be past the election. Let's all try to find a little bit of joy and things that make us smile.
I love that.
That would be good.
I love that. Well, this is a great book for the holiday time where worry is rampant. So it's perfect to have out, and it's a real gift. And I just love how much you shared about yourself and all the memoir-y parts of it that are interspersed, because, I took it all to heart, like advice from a friend, so thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. That's what I would hope the takeaway would be. So that makes me feel good.
Oh, good. Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in February, if not sooner. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social @Zibby Owens and @Zibby Readers.